fleeting shadow risen to life from a nightmare realm. It rides the wind. It will lure you into its spell to explore the dark human motives on which it preys.
In 1977, Kings Island would add its first looping steel coaster named the Screaming Demon. This coaster, manufactured by Arrow, was a launch shuttle loop that inverted riders twice, once forward, once backward, through a single clothoid loop. This was not the first ride or attraction built by Arrow at Kings Island. Kings Island actually had 10 earlier rides that were designed and built by Arrow as well. Following the success of the Screaming Demon, Kings Island wanted to add a next major coaster. Instead of Kings Island going with the modern steel coaster concept that was at other parks across the country, they decided to build something original. So the Beast opened in 1979 and catapulted the park to the top of being known as the park to go to, basically. And before the Beast was actually completed, what many people don't know is they already sought another major roller coaster. That's when they decided to consult and contact once again Arrow after the success of the Screaming Demon looping roller coaster at Kings Island. At the time Kings Island contacted Arrow, Arrow had already begun work on what they were calling the next generation of coasters. Initial development of a revolutionary coaster design was underway in which riders would hang underneath the track, giving them the sensation of flight. Arrow had built a model and then a working prototype for what they coined a suspended coaster. Its design was based on the idea that riders sat in trains hanging underneath inverted track held in place by upside-down L-shaped supports. The trains themselves would consist of enclosed cars suspended by an overhead chassis via a hinged steel arm, allowing the car to swing from right to left. The layout of the coaster's track would incorporate many twists and turns, so as the train's chassis maneuvered the corners, the cars would swing from side to side via inertia. The idea wasn't exactly new. There had been unsuccessful attempts at a hanging coaster in the early 1900s and another recent attempt at a German Oktoberfest in 1975. The Arrow version was a state-of-the-art design that required a park that would allow them to install a full-scale, full-course operational version. Due to their previously established relationship with the company and their desire to install something groundbreaking, Kings Island Park executives traveled to Arrow's Mountain View, California facility in 1978. There they were shown and test rode the suspended prototype. TAF executives then made their decision to partner with Arrow and further develop the new coaster concept. The agreement allowed Arrow to build and test a full-scale version, while the park supplied the land, financial support, and a team of their own accomplished engineering and coaster technicians. Walt Davis, Kings Island's director of park operations, was an engineer who helped oversee the construction of the Beast after working previously at the Pentagon. Davis became integral to the project and served as the park's liaison with Arrow. He had been one of the persons that rode the prototype and would ultimately oversee the local engineering, development, and installation of the ride at the park for the next 3 years. Kings Island chose to dedicate a highly visible 3-acre plot of land located off of Coney Mall between the Beast and the Racer for the development of the attraction. Creation of the bat began immediately upon agreement in 1978 and took 18 months of design before construction even began. The coaster was engineered in Mountain View, California. Its layout incorporated 2 chain-lift hills much like the Beast, each standing 100 feet in height. Its circuit was 2,456 feet in length and included 4 spirals measuring up to 40 feet in radius. The spirals were purposely designed to be virtually unbanked so cars would freely swing up to 90 degrees while twisting through the course. The ride was engineered to operate with 3 7-car trains, each holding 28 riders, enabling the potential capacity of 2,000 people per hour. Ironically, the bat was not designed to operate as a very fast coaster. It reached a top speed of only 35 miles per hour. Once the design was complete, it took 24 months of manufacturing, shipping, and assembly to construct it. The ride was fabricated at Arrow's 120,000 square foot manufacturing facility located in the Freeport Center in Clearfield, Utah. Components then traveled by flatbed truck to the park for installation. The entire season before it opened, visitors to Kings Island could see the ride in various states of assembly. When the park opened in April 1980, the local press immediately was clamoring for information on the odd-looking upside-down coaster. Kings Island officials remained tight-lipped, revealing that the work had begun on a revolutionary new thrill ride, explaining it would be completed by the summer of 1981. Kings Island's general manager William Price teased the Cincinnati Post, saying it's a totally new concept, there's nothing like it in the whole world. Because the ride was so visible from the midway, speculation ran rapid, and Kings Island received an immense amount of free publicity. Finally, on October 29, 1980, Kings Island invited local news media outlets to the park to reveal what they had been working on. Members of the press were led to the brand new station of the ride, where one of the coaster trains was on display, as well as a rendering of the ride's layout. A colorful cast of scary characters including Dracula, Dracula's wife, and a human version of the bat were also present. Kings Island new Vice President and General Manager F.R. Bush explained to the press that the new attraction they had been so curious about was a completely new concept and rides. He said, "We decided to name our new attraction the Bat," then explained the concept, saying riders in a suspended coaster will not have the type of steel tracks or wooden support beams below them. All the structural work is above the rider, so it is difficult to see the next turn. He added, it will be an experience like no one had ever seen before. The ride would be similar to the bat in flight. Bats soar through the air gracefully, swooping and circling and diving unexpectedly. That's exactly what the rider will experience. It will be an aerobic sensation. The coaster didn't come cheap. Even with development partnership between Kings Island and Arrow, and the park revealed the bat came in with a price tag of $3.8 million, and that's over $10.2 million in today's terms. 1 month following the announcement in November 1980, initial construction was completed. The ride was immense for the standards of the time and incorporated over 1 million pounds of twisted tubular steel, forming over 4 miles worth of track and supports. Over 1 mile of drilling was performed to create foundation caissons underneath the footers. The foundations for the supports required 2.5 million pounds of poured concrete and 100,000 steel anchor bolts to form the basis for 162 support columns. The 2,456 feet of track was secured to the columns by 180 4-inch pipe welds, 90 12-inch pipe welds, and 162 saddle welds. The elaborate 3-story station was also completed with an enclosed train storage bay. It was themed to invoke Victorian-era mansion, complete with a turret and belfry. Built and installed by Cincinnati Malacron, the Maximizer served the purpose as the main computer control for monitoring all the ride's mechanical and safety systems. Throughout the track course, 62 sensors were placed, all connected to the Maximizer by over 52,000 feet of copper wire. As trains passed the sensors, a signal would be sent to the Maximizer regulating speed, operation, and control systems of the operator's panel. Simultaneously, mock cars with 180-degree swinging arc were built out of plywood and painstakingly moved throughout the entire course by hand. This allowed engineers to test clearance and avoid any potential interference before first cycling trains. The 3 trains consisted of 7 cars, each containing 4 seats, which utilized an over-the-shoulder safety restraint to secure riders. Arrow had designed sculpted cars to resemble the wings of a bat. However, front of each car was initially built to be later adorned by an elaborate bat head sculpted by Kings Island Art Development. During the development phase, that was left off the cars. By the first week of April 1980, the coaster began initial cycle runs, and on April 4th, 1981, the park issued a press release stating the bat had begun operational testing and would open to the public on April 26th, the first day of the 1981 operating season. Among the first test riders was Walt Davis and John Rood, a field service rep for Arrow who has served as liaison throughout the build. After the initial rides, Davis told the press, "Hanging below the overhead track in the car is an entirely new sensation. You swoop back and forth from side to side, diving toward the ground. It is really like a bat physically. The ride is smooth but very exciting. Psychologically, it is a real bear," Root added. "It's just like hanging at the end of a swinging rope for 2 minutes." In reality, behind the scenes, those in charge were already aware of the substantial issues. First, the safety monitoring system was especially prone to sensitivity and consistently shut the ride down, even with just 1 train in operation. This negated the potential use of 3 trains. Also, the ride was traveling faster than anticipated, and the side-to-side swings were much more aggressive than expected. This prompted the addition of shock absorbers to the underside of the chassis to soften and slow the swinging of the cars. The park spent a 3-week period before opening the ride to the public trying to fine-tune some of these issues. To help buffer, Kings Island PR personnel were briefing the local press that guests should expect the ride to be temperamental and stressed that it was a prototype and first of its kind and unique. Undeterred, the park pushed forward to open the ride and began a massive media campaign to promote it, as you see in this promotional video that I keep on replaying. The ride's iconic logo was shown by John Maggart, a Cincinnati artist who had previously been involved in the development of the Screamin' Demon and the Beast emblems. The ride would receive substantial press, billboard, print, and media campaign, much like the Beast had a few seasons prior. There was even an unforgettable 30-second animated commercial produced by Hanna-Barbera that fantastically invoked the mystery and scare of the ride. The ride premiered to the media on April 22nd, 4 days prior to the start of the 1981 season. As planned, it officially opened to the guests the following Sunday. It operated fairly consistently during the spring weekend operating days, but had sporadic system shutdowns. The park had expected these, figuring that since it was a prototype, some bugs needed to be worked out. Still, the park was very proud of the ride, and on May 24, 1981, in preparation for daily operations, F.R. Bush proudly told the media that the Bat reaffirms Kings Island as a leader in innovative thrill ride concepts. To guests, it was an immense hit, and much like the Beast, it drew the attention of media, guests, and thrill seekers in the world all over. Even with an extensive queue house, it was fairly common for the line to the Bat to stretch the entirety of the Coney Mall all the way back to the racer's entrance. Waits would often reach 3+ long-hour waits, but the main part of the extensive wait had much to do with the difficulty in maintaining consistency in operation. Often the coaster would open late on operating days, and constant tweaks were required to keep it operating consecutively the first few months. In particular, the violent swings of the cars were causing the shock absorbers to wear out quickly. This necessitated the absorbers to be replaced every day, over and over, and so additional pairs of shock absorbers were soon added to each car to help reduce the stress on the original pair. The Maximizer proved so temperamental that the ride would often lock up, requiring complete track survey by engineers and a reboot of the entire safety operating system. If the system shut down while operating with guests, the trains would stop while climbing the lifts, and the riders would have to be evacuated by slowly walking down the lift stairs one by one. The coaster would shut down many times and having extended periods of time throughout the 1981 season. When the 1981 season was finally over, the staff at Kings Island were relieved because now they could finally work out the problems with the actual prototype design of the coaster and get it fixed before the 1982 operating season. Aero Huss engineers began the massive task of addressing problems. The trains were overhauled and the shocks, struts, axles, brakes, and brake fins were replaced in the off-season. The over-the-shoulder restraints were replaced by flatter, more comfortable collars to alleviate the concerns raised by guests that felt like their heads got knocked around by jarring swinging. The maximizer systems were reviewed, addressed, and sensor placement was reviewed. The ride structure had additional stress cables added to help defer the train. The outward pull of the helix is placed on the supports. The entire coaster was strengthened, spot welded, and painted. When Kings Island opened for its 10th anniversary season on April 25, 1982, the BAT resumed operation with the park. However, it operated for a mere 4 weekends. On May 21st, it experienced what the park called a mechanical malfunction and was urgently shut down. Kings Island's PR department promptly told the press the coaster would not operate on Memorial Day weekend, not revealing a specific cause. Then, just a few days later, on May 27th, Walt Davis extended the closure, saying the coaster would be shut down for at least a month. Davis said it was not operating as standards guaranteed by the manufacturer, and we decided to close it rather than inconvenience the park guests. In reality, the park was no longer confident in the safe operations of the ride. Multiple mechanical malfunctions necessitated Aero Huss officials to complete an analysis of the ride's problems before placing it back in operation. In addition, an analysis report revealed there were issues with the alignment where the track was welded to the steel supports. This necessitated further stress tests, which determined the lateral forces of the heavy trains were compromising the integrity of the structure. Because the track was not banked, the stress being placing on a track was causing the coaster to pull itself apart. Initially, the side pulls of the train were by force to twist the track banked transition. This caused the welds that held the track supports to be compromised. In a press release on June 3rd, it was reported that the attraction was closed indefinitely. The BAT did not operate for the remainder of the 1982 season and sat silent while park officials negotiated with Aero a complete overhaul of the ride. By this point, Kings Island officials were completely frustrated with the coaster. It was escalating in repair costs and required an unlimited amount of time spent babysitting it. In the meantime, Kings Island decided they needed a backup thrill to offset the frustrations guests were experiencing with the closure of the BAT. Prior to the 1982 season, the suggestion of the park's marketing director, Tom Nolan, the wooden coaster maintenance team had been testing the ability of the park's racer to run with his trains turned backwards. The tests were a success, and on the very same day they announced an indefinite closure of the BAT, they announced they would be running the south side of the racer backwards for Memorial Day holiday weekend. That weekend alone, Backwards Racer gave 54,000 rides, a record for that coaster. Guests flipped over it, and as a result, Kings Island made the decision to keep the one side, the racer, running backwards indefinitely. This thrill lasted until 2008, when the park made the decision to again run completely forward as originally designed. Without the inconsistencies of the BAT, guests wouldn't have had the fortunate experience of enjoying what many call Ray Car for 26 seasons. When all seemed lost, Kings Island surprised the public in 1983 by announcing the BAT is back. After sitting silent for an entire year, it reopened for public operation the weekend of May 21st. Over the 82-83 hiatus, Aero Huss engineers completed an entire structural mechanical analysis of the ride required by the park. The result was Aero added a more powerful lift motors to increase the horsepower to the lifts. They reduced the trains to 6 cars to reduce the weight of the trains. In addition, they strengthened all weld joints and added more and more substantial structural supports. The trains, originally designed to swing freely, now had a total of 6 shock absorbers per car. The ultimate goal with the revisions was to slow the trains, reduce the weight, reduce the swing arc, and solidify the structure. The ride operated in its temperamental fashion, but without significant issues for the first half of the season. However, it once again began experiencing more and more mechanical problems. By mid-July, it was closed for more repairs. reopening on July 23rd. By this point, the coaster was a conglomeration of fixes, all made in an attempt to keep it semi-operational. The park never revealed the reason for the particular closure. They continue to work with Aero Hus on a fix, even randomly cycled empty train in the coming months. However, other than testing and analysis, the ride sat idle for the remainder of the 1983 season and throughout the 83-84 park hiatus. By March of 1984, Kings Island had made the determination they would not be reopening the bat for the 1984 season. Bill Medford, Kings Island then manager of marketing, told the press, "We're not in a big hurry. We just want to find out why it's inconsistent. It's a big investment, so we want to make sure it works." He added, "This does not mean we're closing down the bat for good. If there's a way we could reopen it, we will." Kings Island had spent the offseason discussing with Aero Hus the potential of re-engineering the ride completely. They agreed that the prototype coaster, as it was originally conceived, was riddled with too many design mistakes and keep it operational on a consistent basis. Concurrently, Aero had used the development of the bat and the lessons learned from its design flaws to improve the suspended coaster concept. The firm proceeded to install two other suspended coasters by 1984, XLR8 at Astro World and Big Bad Wolf at Busch Gardens. The new designs incorporated bank track and a braking system above the train, first below, which resulted in a successful operation for the coasters. It was determined that in order for the bat to reopen and operate successfully, all the track would need to be replaced to allow for banking and relocation of the brakes to the chassis. This would have required a substantial rebuild and substantial cost. Ultimately, it would have been a large expenditure on a ride that had, by that time, become too much of a pain in the neck. So, following the years of frustration, bad guest experiences, and bad press and escalating costs, Kings Island made the decision to pull the plug on the coaster rather than to reinvest. On November 6, 1984, Kings Island general manager would announce that the bat would be demolished. To demolish the ride, it would cost just $70,000 and only take 6 weeks. The station of the bat would be saved and later used for the Vortex roller coaster that would be built in 1987 as kind of a replacement coaster by Aerodynamics. For the 1984 season, Kings Island introduced the King Cobra to guests. The coaster was designed by Toga Manufacturing in Japan and its main feature was that it enabled guests to stand up while riding. It would be the world's first uniquely designed stand-up coaster with a loop. Walt Davis, the Kings Island engineer that had been so ingrained with the development and installation of the bat, helped oversee the installation of King Cobra. He then left Kings Island to help oversee the opening of the beach water park, eventually becoming the vice president of the U.S. division of Togo International. Later, he earned his pilot's license at the age of 60 and taught aviation to others, no doubt inspired by part of his original intent to get the bat to fly. During its lifetime, the bat took a total of 1.8 million riders on their descent on the coaster. By comparison, the Beast has easily gotten over 2 million rides in a single season. So during its 3-season tenure at the park, the original bat only gave a mere total of 1.8 million rides. In 1993, Kings Island would add Top Gun, which was its second suspended coaster from Aero Development. The ride would be named Top Gun until in 2014, Kings Island decided to rename it the Bat as a tribute to the original Bat at Kings Island. What are some of your favorite memories if you got a chance to ride this one-of-a-kind prototype roller coaster from Aerodynamics? Let us know in the comments below and enjoy the on-ride POV as we conclude the history of the Bat here on Midwest Coaster Fans. Thanks again for watching.